Alright, so I have a few new goodies to show you. These are the James Duff extended radius arms. This is what comes with the kit. Everything except the two coil retainers, those do not come with the kit. I bought those separately. You can see those. These were separate. I had to pay for those separately. Everything else came with the kit. You got the head unit, the head of the radius arm. These basically bolt to your original caps, like that. You can also buy new caps, but I decided to use my old ones. So you have the head units, then those go into the arms, and back to the brackets that go on the frame, that bolt to the frame. Then you also have these brackets go where the old radius arms bolted up, and they bolt to the transmission, to the bottom of the frame, and the transmission cross member, the transmission mount. That's to give extra support to the transmission mount, because you're taking away the radius arm bracket, which originally bolted to the mount and supported it. These pieces are your brake line extensions. Haven't really figured out where those, or how those go on yet, because I don't have the brake lines on. These are plates that go inside of the frame. You're supposed to sandwich the frame, and they bolt to the rear brackets. So these plates bolt onto here. Something along the lines of that. So my initial thoughts: the head unit, that's cast, that's very stout, very well built. The radius arms, they're very solid, very heavy duty. The heim joints on the back are large, heavy-duty heim joints. There's plenty of thread to get inside to the radius arm. Plenty strong enough. The weak link, as I see it, are these. I'm really not overly thrilled with the design of this. I wish it could have been wider to put more, to spread the stress on the frame out a little bit more. I think there should have been a support welded into here that would have connected both sides and the top of this U. Something like that. And I wish there would have been multiple bolts going into the bottom of the frame rather than just one. I think I might do some changes on this, a few modifications. I'll weld in a gusset in here. And depending on heim joint clearance, I may put a second bolt hole going into the bottom of the frame. Another weak piece on this, as I see it, is this bracket. This goes inside the frame, and it bolts up like this. It sandwiches the frame. Now these pieces, I don't know if you can really see it on the video, but there's a difference in thickness for sure. Why they didn't put all 4 holes in here, it's beyond me. That seems kind of dumb to me, but you have to drill these plates. You have to locate it with this hole and one of these, and then drill out the rest of the holes. That kind of beyond me why they did that. The other thing I would have done with this is to make it an L. So when it sits in the frame, you're also getting the bolt coming up from the bottom through the bottom of the bracket. And it would have supported the inside of the frame a little bit more, spread that stress out. Like I said, not overly pleased with that, and I'll probably end up modifying these before I put them on. We'll see how that goes. The directions for installing these, they're okay. Would have liked to have seen them done a little bit differently. They're not. Several parts in them are contradict other parts of the directions. So there's a little bit of guesswork involved. I think they could have been a little clearer. I think they should probably redo their directions, but overall, you know, if this is a project you're comfortable with tackling, you're gonna figure it out regardless of the direction. So they're okay, but could have been better. Now, one thing I am gonna do, what the directions say to do is to, when you drill the holes on the frame to mount these brackets, it says to measure from, well, why don't we go over to the frame and we can talk about that over there. So this bolts onto the frame somewhere right around in here. The directions say to measure 19 inches off the back of that body mount to the front edge of the radius arm mount, and then to locate your hole or drill your holes from there and one in the bottom. Problem with that is the directions also say, and I'll read them word for word for you here. Okay, it says to mount them 19 inches off the rear flange of the body bracket, but then it has this note. It says, note, although we feel that this is an accurate way to mark the position of your long arm frame brackets, occasionally some Bronco coil buckets are not fitted properly from the factory. So they're saying that this is the way you should do it unless the factory didn't put your buckets on right. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently. You can see that I've already put back on the drop down radius arm bracket and the original rear bracket. I'm going to put it on the same on the other side. I'm going to locate where the axle sat originally when I took it apart, because everything was working, so I want to put the axle back in the same location. And I'm going to use that to mark on the frame up this way. I'll use that to mark where the center of the axle is, and I'll hang a plumb bob from the frame to the center of the axle. Mark that on the axle, and then take all of the old radius arm stuff off, put all the new stuff on, and then locate those holes and drill them. That's my plan. Let's get started. Okay, going by their measurements, if you measure off of, they want you to go 19 inches from this edge to here, which would be the front of the radius arm bracket. If you measure 19 inches off here, at least on my Bronco, between the passenger side and the driver's side, you would be 1/4 of an inch off. So what I did was to find actual center, was to put the axle back in place with the radius arms. Then I hung a plumb bob from the coil tower down to the axle, and I marked right underneath the plumb bob where the axle should be located. I did that on both sides. So now I'm going to take the radius arms off, the brackets off, and I'm going to mount the new radius arms on and put the axle back so the mark is under the plumb bob, and clamp on the rear mounts and then mark the holes to drill them. So I've got the mounts located, mocked up, ready to drill the holes out. So I'm going to disassemble this now, and I'll probably flip this up on the rotisserie and use the drill press to drill those holes out. You can see I used the plumb bob there to mark where it was on the axle with the old radius arms. So front to back I have it located well. Glad I didn't use the directions from Duff, because it would have been off by about 1/4 of an inch. There's some adjustment in there, but it would have been off 1/4 inch from left to right. Alright, so I've been drilling the holes for the mounts for the extended radius arm brackets. Got 3 of the 4 holes drilled, but as you can see, ran into a problem. You can see on the frame here there's like a triangle of rust. That is where that goes. This is the outside mount. These are the bolts for the transfer case mount. And this is just a support bracket, but you can see it doesn't fit. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut this mount right inside here and then drill another hole somewhere around in here. I'm going to weld these mounts on anyway. I'm going to use both the bolts and welding, so it's not going to be a big deal to cut this off. But I'm a little disappointed in how that's supposed to fit on there. Oh well, gotta do what you gotta do, right? Right, so I need to trim this right along this line here, and that'll make it fit around the transfer case mount and give me enough room to lay a bead in there to weld it. As I said earlier in the video, I wasn't very thrilled at the way they did this backing plate, the support piece for the bracket. So I went ahead and designed something different, and I bent up this piece. This is 3/16 steel, bent at 90 degrees, and it's long enough to spread the stress of the mount out farther on the frame. Hopefully it'll make it a little stronger and a little bit stiffer. And there will also be some vertical supports in here as well. So this frame rail is bent. It's bent upwards like this, which makes this piece not seat down on the bottom ledge flush, and make that fit in just a little bit better. So right around here is where it seems to be pivoting from. So I'm going to heat this area up, give it a couple of good hits with a give it a couple of good hits with the sledge from the inside, and hopefully that'll fix it. There we go. So I got the plate on the underside. That's the reinforcement plate for the long arm suspension. And also back here will be, I'll flip it around to this side. That's right about here will be for a rock slider bar to come out. I got those holes drilled. I'm drilling out these holes now, these 3, and those are for the transfer case. And then there'll be 4 more holes back here, or 5 more holes back here. Well, let's get to it. There we go. Now it's time to drill the holes back here. There'll be 5 holes. 2 on bottom, 2 higher, and then 1 center on top. I'm gonna get set up for that. That will do it. So we got those 5 holes, the 3 for the transfer case, and then the 3 for this bracket. This bracket's going to be welded on as well as bolted. And these 5 holes back here, eventually I'll make a mount out of quarter plate steel. It'll fold over the top and back down, and welded to that quarter plate steel will be the tubing coming out for the rock slider. And that is the same as up here on the frame. Again, there'll be a quarter plate mount that bolts to this, and welded to that quarter plate mount will be the rock slider tubing. And that tubing will probably be like the I think it's 2.5 inch quarter wall that they use to make trailer hitches. That's what I'm thinking I'll use, but that's in the future. And on the inside of this, there's a gusset. There's a bracket welded on the inside of that too. Well, that's it for this video. In the next video, I will weld all the brackets to the frame and do a few other modifications and get it ready for powder coating. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Project Mayhem channel to stay up to date with the progress of the Bronco build. Thanks for watching.